Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be covering the second part of the Glory of a Team Rocket set, because sadly this couldn't be one video for some reason, like the videos just wouldn't process together, so yeah, sadly this is going to have to be part 2. So first up, we've got Team Rocket Zapdos, and honestly nothing too crazy here, like Jamming Wing could be used in some kind of control situations, but honestly I just don't think this card is particularly great. Like, maybe in GLC it'll be a bit better, but as it stands, not a very impressive card. Then we have a Team Rocket's Ampharos line. Now, Ampharos does have the fairly interesting ability Darkest Impulse, which I think could be useful to some degrees, like especially in things like Charizard, but it's just a case of, do you want to actually make the deck space for this? I think maybe partnered up with things like Espathra that can already slow down your opponent, then this could be quite potent. But at the same time, 40 damage isn't really a lot, and it's not going to affect every single deck in Standard. But, still a very powerful ability, I guess, to keep an eye out for. So yeah, that's Ampharos. Then we have a Hypno. Now, unfortunately, I don't think this Hypno is super great. However, it does have a really cool attack. It is for 3 Psychic Energy, though. Your opponent flips a coin for each of their own bench Pokemon, and you do 80 damage for each Tails they get, which I think is really interesting. Like, it's just a very unique effect that you don't really see in the TCG, so I think that's really cool, to be honest. But yeah, it's very flippant, of course, no pun intended. It is 3 Psychic Energy, it's very expensive, so I don't think this is super great, but it is still a very interesting card at the very least, and maybe some source of, things like Bad Deck Fridays or something like that. Then we have Team Rocket's Mewtwo, probably the most, I guess, appealing EX card from the set as it stands. A lot of HP, 280, which is a lot. The ability Power Saver means this Pokemon can't attack unless you have 4 or more Team Rocket's Pokemon in play, which is pretty devastating. But, if you're relying on things like the Spidops, which we covered in part 1, unfortunately, like the Spidops to charge up energy to itself, then you probably don't need that many other non-Team Rockets Pokemon in your deck. Like, maybe some Pheasantipity, potentially. But aside from that, you could probably just get away with running things like Mimikyu and Spidops. So, yeah, seems like a very powerful card. And then Deletion Sphere does 160 damage for 2 Psychic and a Colorless, and you may discard up to 2 energy from your bench Pokemon, and you do 60 more damage for each card discarded in this way. So 280 is the magic number here, which is great. And the fact that it's 2 Psychic and a Colorless is actually really good for another reason, because Spidops attacks for a Grass Colorless and can attach energy to itself. So you might just want to run like a split of Psychic and Grass energy, and then no matter what you attach to Mewtwo, be it, Psychic or Grass, then you can use Deletion Sphere, which is really cool. So definitely like the look of this deck. Seems like a lot of fun, although I will admit the retreat cost is a bit scary, so we'll have to run plenty of switch cards. But yeah, aside from that, seems pretty strong. Then we have Team Wobbuffet. Team Rocket's Wobbuffet, that's the name of this Pokemon, which has the attack Rocket Mirror, which can basically just fully heal one of your bench Team Rocket's Pokemon and moving all those damage onto your opponent's active, which I guess could be devastating if you put like a Hero's Cape on Mewtwo, so it has 308 HP, which is kind of daft, and then, you could fully heal a Mewtwo with Wobbuffet. Like, it could be a very fun archetype at least to try out, but I think Prime Catcher is probably just going to be the better ace spec, and yeah, Wobbuffet just seems a bit too risky. Also has a high retreat cost, so you can't like put an escape board on it or anything, which is annoying, but at least you can use Team Rocket's energy to pay for Rocket Mirror. But yeah, I don't think Rocket's Wobbuffet is particularly great. Then we have Rocket's Chingling. Very cool to see this Pokemon come back in the TCG. Looks adorable. But yeah, this guy hasn't been around forever, so it's really cool to see this Pokemon come back. Has the attack Ringing Noise, which says discard a random card from your opponent's hand. I mean, like, maybe with a Xerasic hand control sort of meme deck, maybe like in a control deck, but I just think Buddew's like more beneficial most of the time and a lot more devastating, and can also do 10 damage. So like, this is doing no damage, which is a shame. So still got free retreat, which is nice, but yeah, I think Xerasic is probably the best partner for Chingling. Then we have Team Rocket's Mimikyu, which has the attack Gem Mimicry. Choose an attack from your opponent's active Terrestrialized Pokemon and use it as the effect of this attack. A very, very strong effect into things like Dragapult, because then you can just bench things like Clefairy and want to kill Dragapult, which is quite funny. But you could also just copy things like Charizard's main attack. You could copy Terrapagos, Ogerpon, things like that. So honestly, a very, very strong attack that I could definitely see splashed out into a few decks, especially things like God of War are going to benefit hugely from this, but also things like, like Xatu builds in general, like a Spathra decks maybe. So I do think Mimikyu is really cool. And then, of course, just in general Team Rocket stacks because you can use a Team Rocket energy. And it also has free retreat. They gave this thing free retreat for some reason, which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, and you can also find it with Poffin if you really wanted to. So, yeah, definitely a big thumbs up from me. Looks to be a very, very fun card. Then we have a Orbital line. And sadly, I don't think this Orbital is very good, but it does have the ability Rocket Brain, which allows you to move damage counters from one of your Team Rocket's Pokemon to another one as often as you like, which is kind of cool. Like, you could technically fully heal a Pokemon and just like shift around the damage and maybe make it awkward for your opponent to KO your Pokemon using spread damage. But to be honest, I think just because it's a stage 2 line, it's a very awkward kind of tech card. If this was like a stage 1, then yeah, it'd be cool, but I think a stage 2 line is just a wee bit too expensive in this day and age. So yeah, it's also very, very fragile in of itself. 130 HP is not a lot. So yeah, sadly, I don't think Orbital will be seeing much play. Then we have a new Annihilate line, which is basically just Feraligatr, which is, yeah, a bit of a shame because, obviously Feraligatr is only now just becoming a good deck. But, I don't think Annihilate is as good as Feraligatr because the ability Vessel of Rage says if this Pokemon has 2 or more damage counters on it, then you do 120 more damage, which is, the same as Feraligatr. You can do 280, which is cool. But the thing is, you have to find a way of actually damaging Annihilate, and Feraligatr just damages itself to get the damage boost. So I don't think this is as strong. Like, maybe if we get a way to damage your evolving Pokemon, like a pseudo Potown kind of reprint, then maybe this could be good. But honestly, as it stands, I don't think this card is like particularly impressive. So it's a bit of a shame, but I think there's maybe a budget deck to be had out of this, but you just have to find a way of actually damaging your own Annihilate. Then we have a new Tranitar, and it is worth mentioning that Pupitar has the attack, Explosive Awakening, but it's commonly known as Ascension. So if a one Colorless does 30 damage, which is cool, then you get to search your deck for a Tranitar and evolve it. So if you wanted to, going second, you could use the Supporter Salvatore, which would allow you to search your deck for a Pupitar, put it on Larvitar, and then use Explosive Awakening for a Colorless, and then you could evolve into Tranitar. So going back into your opponent's second turn, you basically get to trigger the ability Soundstream on Tranitar, which says as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's basic Pokemon during Pokemon Checkup. Now, I don't think the attack is that impressive. Like, we'll have to wait until things like Mega Lucario, I think, before we can power up this attack, but the ability is pretty strong, right? So, like, that is a decent amount of damage counters. Like, maybe with Frostlass, you could put like a hit and run kind of strategy into play here with Flygon EX or something. Like, there is fun things that you can do with this, but the last time we had this ability, which was like the Weezing from Sun and Moon, like, what made Weezing so good is that it had a spread attack as well, and it was also a stage 1. This is a stage 2, which makes things a lot more awkward, but it's still a very fun ability, and it's also one of the only fighting type Tranitars legal in GLC, which is kind of funny. So, yeah, kind of cool in that regard. Then we have a Probopass, which is, yeah, just straight to GLC. Then we have a Mediacham, which is probably another GLC card, to be honest. 170 damage if you match your opponent's active Pokemon with attached energy. Like, that could be kind of fun with crushing hammers and stuff, but yeah, I don't expect great things from this Mediacham, sadly. Then we have a Regirock EX, which can accelerate energy to itself, and then Giant Rock does 140, and if your opponent's active is a stage 2, it does 280 instead. To be honest, I think for 4 energy, that's just way too expensive and not enough damage. Like, sure, you could maybe use like Yanmega to power this up, or like Baxcalibur as a fun rogue deck or something, but to be honest, I don't think Regirock is super great. Like, maybe when we get the item that increases fighting type damage by plus 30 for a turn, maybe it could be good then, but as it stands, not very impressive. Then we have Ekans and Arbok. Now, Arbok is definitely one of the better cards from the set for sure. Has the ability Intimidating Claire, which says if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent can't play any Pokemon cards with abilities from their hand, excluding Rocket's Pokemon, which is a very potent ability, like just flat out a very good ability. However, of course, it will have to be active. So you're either attacking with Arbok or using some sort of hit and run strategy, maybe. So like maybe using something like Flygon or like Quaxalava EX or even the newer like Excelgor from Journey Together. So there is like some decent options there for a fun deck. And then Spinning Tail, if you actually want to attack with this guy, is quite expensive, but you could use a Team Rocket's energy and a manual attachment. And this attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's not a lot of spread damage, and you can't really pair it with Frostlass because you'd be damaging yourself. Like, you could use Monkey Dory, but that just sounds way, way too clunky at that point. Too many moving pieces when you're, like, trying to set up for a Spinning Tail as well. So I don't think this could be a very good attacker, but as it stands, the ability definitely has me interested at the very least. So yeah, to be honest, quite excited for Arbok for sure. Then we have Team Rocket's Nidoran and Nidorina. Nidorina does have like a semi-useful attack, can essentially Ascension itself and something on the bench, which is cool. So basically this is useful if you actually want to lead the game with Team Rocket's Nidoqueen, which will do 180 damage for 1 Dark Energy if you have any bench Pokemon with Nidoking in its name. So if you just want to set up Nidoking slowly on the bench and hide behind a Nidoqueen, then you could do that if you wanted to. Although I do think just playing like Budyu is probably going to be enough. But yeah, so we have Team Rocket's Nidoran Male, Team Rocket's Nidorina, and then Team Rocket's Nidoking EX. So this one's actually kind of cool. Dirty Horns for 2 Dark and a Colorless does 100, and your opponent's active is now poisoned, and during Pokemon checkup, they take 80 damage on that Pokemon instead of 10. So quite a sizable bump up for poison damage. So if your opponent doesn't shift it, basically, they're going to take 260 damage total coming back into your turn, which is pretty decent actually for 2 Dark and a Colorless. Now, of course, your opponent could evolve to get out of this, they could switch out, but if you want to, you could also play things like Perilous Jungle to increase it by 20. So at that point, you'd actually be doing 100 damage between turns, which is, yeah, very, very scary for the amount of poison damage you're doing. So I do think there is at least some potential in Nidoking. Like, it's kind of expensive. It's a stage 2. You know, like Hydreigon's kind of been slow and clunky, and that only really needs 2 energy to get going. But to be honest, I do have at least some faith that Team Rocket's Nidoking could be decent. So kind of one to bear in mind for the future. Then we have Team Rocket's Zubat. No free retreat, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, only 50 HP as well, so this guy's definitely getting sniped by Dragapult. Then we have Team Rocket's Golbat, which does have the ability Sneaky Bite, classic reprint from the Black and White era. When you play this Pokemon from your hand, was it Black and White? I think it was X and Y actually. Yeah, it was probably like XY Phantom Forces. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during a turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Very, very cool ability. And then Crobat EX also has a very similar ability. When you evolve it, you get to put 20 damage on 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So, yeah, the whole idea here is you just spend time on the bench, slowly building up Golbats and then moving into Crobats eventually. And then you can also reset this effect by using Assassin's Return, which only does 120 damage, but you can put Crobat into your hand with all the Pokemon beneath it, and then discard all attached cards. But still a very decent attack. And I think this is the kind of hit and run deck maybe Arbok will need. So you could just pair this with like a 2-2 line of Arbok and then like just go into Arbok whenever you need it and also lead the game with it. So just a very fun deck idea maybe for Crobat EX. Honestly seems like a lot of fun. Would be interested in trying this one out. Then we have Team Rocket's Grimer with the attack Corrosive Sludge. We do have to read out Grimer and Muck because Grimer does have an interesting effect. At the end of your opponent's next turn, discard the defending Pokemon and all cards attached to it. Which, you know, for 2 energy is pretty appealing. Like, your opponent could, of course, switch out or reset the effect somehow, or just KO Grimer and stuff, but at the same time, I do think this effect is, you know, it can be quite scary in the right situations, so maybe it's something to keep an eye on for control decks. Then we have Team Rocket's Muck, which does have a fairly interesting attack in the form of Venom Hazard, actually. 2 Dark and a Colorless, does 100 damage for each special condition affecting your opponent's active, but sadly, we don't really have many ways of inflicting a lot of special conditions outside of setting up things like Cradley, which is, you know, kind of inconsistent, or like using Dangerous Laser, which is an A-spec, so you can only use it once per game. So, like, yeah, I'm not really sure this Muck is going to be great or anything, but if we ever get ways of inflicting more special conditions, then, you know, maybe this could be something special. Then we have my personal favorite deck from the set, which is going to be Team Rocket's Wheezing. Now, Coughing does say if it's active and then damaged or even KO'd, you can search your deck for 2 Pokemon with Coughing in their name and put them onto your bench. And it doesn't specify Team Rocket's Coughing, because wheezing does 40 damage for each Pokemon in play with coughing or wheezing in its name. And honestly, after seeing all like the Team Rocket support for this deck, I do think this will be a lot of fun. Like we have ways of finding all the Pokemon, we have ways of buffing up some damage. We of course have Team Rocket's energy for Dark and Colorless, so it's just looking to be a very fun budget deck. Probably nothing more than that, of course, but just something fun to horse around with on the ladder. So a fun casual deck, if you will. Then we have Team Rocket's Murkrow, which I guess could be used as a control piece in some situations, but no Honchkrow to boot. So Team Rocket's Murkrow doesn't seem super great. Also got an awkward amount in 8 HP, but yeah. Aside from that, at least it's interesting. Then we have Team Rocket Sneasel with the attack and Backstab. Does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each damage counter already on that Pokemon. So if you're playing something like Crobat or maybe a spread deck or builds with Frostlass, you could then target something down in the late game. So this could be its own kind of deck with Frostlass and Budgie or something, just something to bear in mind for the future. But I could honestly see this being pretty good in a Budgie Frostlass kind of deck. So yeah, pretty cool. Then we have a Fortress, which is not very good, but if you really want to do anything with Fortress, probably just play it with a Slowking, right? So you can copy this attack with Slowking, flip 4 coins, 80 damage for each heads. There might be a one-time Hail Mary, you get 4 heads and you KO anything, and it's really funny. But aside from that, nothing really too crazy there. Skarmory is bulk. Zamazenta, I think, is probably bulk, pretty much, yeah. I don't think Zamazenta is very good. Like, 2 Metal and a Colorless is just too expensive. Then we have Team Rocket's Raticate, which I do think is kind of interesting. Like, 1 Colorless, 90. Flip 2 coins. If both are tails, it does 90 to itself, so it can KO itself accidentally. But I do think if you're trying to set up for things like the new Lycanroc from Journey Together, then 90 damage is actually good, like a good place to start for a Colorless. So, like maybe there's something here for a fun budget deck. Like Rattata is very fragile, but aside from that, I think this could be fun at some point. Then we have a Meowth, which is, it's Meowth. Then we have Team Rocket's Persian EX, which does have the attack Haughty Orders. Now, I don't think this is a very good attack right now, but in the future, when we get to Mega Evolution, right, and all those Megas have crazy attacks on them, doing silly amounts of damage. So I do think there is maybe some potential in Team Rocket's Persian in the future, especially since you can use Team Rocket's energy for Haughty Orders. As it stands right now, I don't think this card is anything crazy, but in the future, when we get some really cool Megas, then yeah, I do think this card could have some potential, maybe. So that's something worth bearing in mind for the future. Then we have Kangaskhan, which is, okay, that's just bulk. Straight to GLC. Then we have Team Rocket's Porygon, which, 90 HP. No, has 60 HP. And then we have Team Rocket's Porygon 2, which does do 20 damage for each sports card in your discard pile with Team Rocket in its name, but it is for 3 colors, so it's just like a wee bit expensive, really. And Team Rocket's Porygon Z attacks for 1 colors less, so there's no point committing, the extra energy to Porygon 2 unless you're using a reversal. But Team Rocket's Porygon Z could honestly be a fun budget deck. Like the ability Reconstitute, you must discard 2 cards from your hand, and then once your turn, you may draw a card. That could be quite cool because you can just discard Team Rocket supporters, and then Control R does the same thing. So 20 damage for each supporter in your discard pile with Team Rocket in its name. So yeah, just like a very straightforward, easy to play deck. You just set up a bunch of Porygon Zs, maybe lead the game with Arbok or something, try and slow them down, or you could use Budyu. But yeah, it just seems like a very fun Stage 2 budget deck. Then we have Tailo and Swellow. Swellow's just a bit sad, really. Like, I don't think we've had a Swellow card recently, and this is the best they can do. It's just so boring and terrible, but yeah, it's a bit sad. Then we have a Squawkabilly, which is awful. Yeah, I don't need to care about that. Team Rocket's Intruder Robot is kind of interesting, actually. Like, choose one of your opponent's face-down prize cards and a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals those cards, and you may have your opponent switch the revealed cards, and the prize card remains face-up for the rest of the game. I think that's a really interesting effect. Like, it could be disruptive. Like, say your opponent has already prized, like, I don't know, a Charizard EX, and then you reveal a Charizard EX from their hand, and you make them switch that with, like a basic energy in their prizes. Like, sure, they can just KO something and grab that Charizard, but I do think there is at least some merits to being that disruptive, basically. So I do think this is kind of cool. Like, I don't see any immediate applications for it in any decks, but it just seems like an interesting effect and one worth bearing in mind for the future. Then we have Team Rocket's Great Ball, which is basically just capturing Aroma, but for Team Rocket's Pokemon. So you flip a coin. If heads, you grab an Evolution Rocket. If tails, you grab a basic Rocket. Like, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like maybe a 3 of in like the Mewtwo deck and stuff like that. So, just a solid card really overall. Just gives you an option that's not Ultra Ball. Then we have Team Rocket's Venture Bomb, which is probably my personal favorite card in the set still. Flip a coin. If heads, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And if tails, put 2 damage counters on your active. Honestly, I just think this card is really cool. Like, it's just so unique from all the other items that we have in Standard right now. And just could be really fun for things like GLC as well. So, yeah, honestly, just a really fun card and definitely one that I'm looking forward to experimenting with. Then we have Team Rocket's Receiver. Search your deck for a sports card with Rocket in its name. So yeah, a lot of Team Rocket stuff, would you have guessed? But yeah, Team Rocket's Receiver, definitely a really cool card. Like, if you're just running a Team Rocket supporter engine with stuff like Mewtwo, then you may as well play 4 Receiver. It's great. So yeah, Receiver, definitely flat out one of the better items in the set for sure. Then we have Team Rocket's Ariana, which is a really cool supporter, but I don't think it's super great because most of these Team Rocket decks will still want to run things like Pheasantipity for some extra draw support. But you do get to draw cards until you have 5 in hand, and if all your Pokemon in play are Rockets, you draw until you have 8 instead, which is kind of cool. And I think this does actually stack with the Stadium, which is Team Rocket's Factory, which says whenever you play a Team Rocket supporter, you draw 2 cards. So like you could essentially draw into 8 and then draw 2 more of the Stadium, which is cool. So like maybe that's enough for a draw engine in all of these decks, but it'll just be required some, it will require some experimentation before we really judge Ariana properly, but still seems like a very solid card overall. Then we have Team Rocket's Archer, which you can only play this if one of your Team Rocket's Pokemon got KO'd during your opponent's last turn. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck, then you draw 5, your opponent draws 3. Very annoying, but to be honest, drawing 5 is a bit rough. Like Ariana is definitely a bit better. Iono can see you more cards most of the time, so I suppose like after 5 prize cards, Iono is strictly worse for you, but still, like draw 5, I suppose, isn't the worst. And the disruption could be good in some situations, but yeah, I don't think Team Rocket's Archer is maybe more than a 1 of or a 2 of in deck. So then we have Team Rocket's Giovanni, which is basically just Guzma, but you have to have a Team Rocket's Pokemon on your bench and active. Okay, so it has to be both. That's interesting. So yeah, it has to be your active Rocket and then your active benched Rocket. You know what I mean? Like you know what this card does. You can see it. You can read it. So like I do think this card is good. Like probably a 3 of in the Mewtwo deck, right? Maybe a 4 of in some decks, but I still think Counter Capture can like slot in quite nicely. So Team Rocket's Giovanni probably gives you a reason at least not to run Prime Capture as your A spec. So that's cool. But yeah, very playable card. Then we have Team Rocket's Petrol. Search your deck for a trainer card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. It's just Skylar, but with the Team Rocket's name slapped on it. So like you could use Receiver to find Skylar. Like that's about it, really. Nothing too crazy. Then we have Team Rocket's Proton, which is definitely a good supporter. If you go first, you can use it on the first turn, and you allow it to search your deck for 3 basic Team Rocket's Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand. So yeah, you can just use Receiver to find, Petrol and Proton. So yeah, it's a very scary combo to do that going first. So yeah, even if you don't have Arven for Poffin in this deck, you can still use Receiver, get Proton, and then get, your Mewtwo board set up. So also get your Weezings out, your coughing and stuff. So yeah, Proton seems really good. Then we have Team Rocket's Watchtower, a very, very good stadium card. Both players' colorless Pokemon have no abilities, which will turn off Porygon Z, funnily enough, so don't run this in the Porygon Z deck. But you will be able to turn off things like Noctowl, Squawkabilly, the Dunsparce. Is there any more? Pidgeot is a big one. Blood Moon Ursalona EX as well, actually. You could turn off Slacking, and attack for Slacking EX. So there is some fun applications. Oh yeah, Fan Rotom. So you do just shut down that like colorless Bouffalont Terrapagos deck, which is quite funny. But yeah, Team Rocket's Watchtower honestly seems very playable. Then we have Team Rocket's Factory, which just says when you play a supporter of Team Rockets in its name, you may draw 2 cards. So kind of like a pseudo draw engine, yes, maybe, for like these Team Rocket focused decks. But at the same time, like draw 2 cards on a stadium that's kind of difficult to find. Like you could just use Petrol, I suppose, to find it in the earlier turns and hope it sticks. But aside from that, you'd have to run this as a 4 of, I think, or like a 3 of at least. But yeah, it seems like a very powerful effect though. Then we have Team Rocket's Energy, which is probably the best card in the set, to be honest. But this card can only be attached to Team Rocket's Pokemon, and it provides a Dark and a Psychic in any two of combinations. So double Psychic, double Dark, or Psychic and a Dark. So just a very, very self-explanatory why this is good, you know. It is a special energy, so you have to find it with things like Colorless Tenacity, maybe, but aside from that, just a very, very strong effect. So, yeah, I'm just going to be doing it for part 2 of the Team Rocket set review. Let me know what you think of these cards down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.